Well, this concludes our panel. Thank you for coming. Okay, better calm photography, right? How many of you are photographers by your own description? Hands up. Hands up. Photographers, yeah? Yeah. How many of you occasionally take a couple of snapshots? Yeah? Okay, good. You are the right kind of people for this panel. Gear doesn't matter. This is something that you'll hear proper photographers say a lot. It doesn't matter if you have an absolutely beautiful Canon 5D Mark III that you had to sell kitty to buy, or one of those super sexy Fuji X100s, or if you have a compact, or if you use your phone. So I style myself a semi-professional photographer. I do weddings and events, but I do most of my photographs over the course of a given month on this thing. It's really good, and you always have it with you, and it's nice and discreet, which is also helpful. The important thing is to know your gear, right? And as long as you have good light, an interesting subject, and a controlled background, you're going to have a decent image. Now, okay, this one was taken with this, so please disregard that. But the gear that you use isn't nearly as important as the light, the subject, and the background. So those are some things that we're going to be talking about today. On the other hand, gear matters. It's really important. Having the right gear affords you speed, it's reliable, it produces good quality, and how many of you have a DSLR with changeable lenses or something similar, mirrorless? Yeah? Yeah? Micro Four Thirds, anyone? APS-C? Do we know what I'm talking about? Okay, well, the kind of gear that you use and how well you use it. So I like, for example, I like fixed focal length lenses. These things don't zoom, so I don't have a lot of flexibility. But the quality that comes out of them is excellent. So whenever somebody asks me, like, what sort of camera should I buy? What sort of I've got this budget, I want to get a good camera. I thought, forget about the camera, get the cheapest camera you can get. Focus on the lenses, because these will influence the quality of your images a great deal. How fast do they focus? How well do they render colors? Like, this is something I didn't realize when I started out with photography. But the quality of the actual optical materials, the quality of the glass, has a lot to do with how the light, how the colors are rendered. Some of these lenses are not very fast focusing. For example, this one, 85mm f1.2 from Canon. This is $2,000 worth of lens, and it doesn't focus very fast. So you can't use it for sports or similar purposes. But what it does do is it takes excellent portraits. I want to talk real quick about the science, the physics of photography. So digital photography and analog photography are exactly the same in this regard, in that it's all about the number of photons that make it to the recording medium. Yes? Recording medium can be film, recording medium can be a digital sensor. And there are three factors that play into this. The ISO is the sensitivity of your medium. Now, it used to be that you have to have different rolls of films. So when you went into a low light environment, you put a more sensitive film in your camera, and when you went outside, you put a less sensitive film in your camera. Digital cameras can do that on the fly. By applying electronic gain to the sensor, they can make it more sensitive to light or less. That means you get more signal per photon or less. Shutter speed determines how long your recording medium is exposed to light. Leave it open longer, more photons reach the recording medium, and you get more signal. And the aperture, that one's a bit difficult to understand. Diaphragma. There's an opening inside this lens, and it can get wider or it can get narrower. And when it gets wider, obviously more light can come through. But other stuff happens as well. So if you want to have the most exposure, the most signal from the scene, for example, if it's really, really dark, you want a high ISO, a slow shutter speed, so it's open for very long, and a wide aperture, so it's very wide open. Let's go through some of these examples. Oh yeah, I'm going to be talking about aperture. Aperture uses a ridiculous scale based on the square root of 2. Now, each of these aperture values represent a factor 2. So, starting at f5.6, Twice as wide is f4, twice as wide is f2.8, twice as wide is f2, 1.4, 1. So if I want to double the amount of light that my sensor receives, and I'm at f4, right, then I'm going to open my aperture to f2.8. The scale is ridiculous. It's based on some old surface area mathematics. Let's not worry about it too much, but basically, this is half as wide as that, this is half as wide as that. Yeah, clear?
Which one is standard?
There is no standard. The standard is whatever you want to use, but different lenses are capable of different maximum apertures. For example, prime lenses, which are non-zoom lenses like these, they tend to have the ability to open their aperture really wide, like f1.4, f1.2 even. Whereas the standard lenses that you get with the DSLR when you buy it, they tend to start at about f4, so they don't get any narrower than that, or any wider than that. Okay, ignore this one for now. I want to look at this one. You see that this guy, this handsome young man is Foxy Moore, and then in the background is Alexander James Adams. This was from Rusfurrence last year. You see that he's sharp and he's all blurry. That's because I had to use a wide aperture to accept a lot of light in this situation. So I don't really have a diagram to show it, but the wider your aperture, the shorter your depth of field. Now, what is depth of field? Depth of field is the area of space that is in focus, right? If I use a narrow aperture, let me go back. If I use f5.6, for example, and I take a photo with you now, I can get everyone in focus. Everyone is in focus from here. But if I take f1.4 and I focus on this guy over here, then the background is going to be blurry. You guys in the back are going to be blurry. There's also the effect that it's relative to the subject distance. So if I'm shooting, say, my 50mm at f1.4 and I'm shooting this guy, then I know I have about half a meter of depth of field at that distance. If I'm shooting that guy at the back there, now because he's, what would it be, about 5-6 meters away from me, I know that I've probably got about 75 centimeters of depth of field at that distance. This is my experience with my gear. Yeah, I don't have a slide for it, but this is something worth mentioning. If you use autofocus, it's always important to focus on the eye of your subject if you're doing a portrait. Because the depth of field, the depth of field extends for two-thirds beyond the focal point and 1/3 in front of it. Am I making sense, guys? Yeah? Okay, so if you focus on my eye, right, and we have a depth of field of, say, about 30 centimeters, if you focus on my eye, then 10 centimeters in front and 20 centimeters behind will be in focus, which is desirable when you're shooting someone in the face. This one is all blurry for another reason. And who can tell me why? It's fairly obvious. Slow shutter speed, very good. The shutter was left open for a long time while I twirled the camera, and so you get all this lovely, lovely blur. This blur can be very desirable because it shows motion, it shows action. On the other hand, it does smear out your subject and they become unrecognizable, even though they're some extremely talented and attractive musicians.
Is there a doctor over there?
Huh?
Is there a doctor over there?
Is there a doctor over there? Doctor Who? Oh my God, yes. That's Cue Ball. He is British fern. He's the bastard anal love child of the last two Doctor Who's. Don't tell him I said that. Edit that out, please. Okay, I want to talk about quality of light. Because even though I love my gear, even though I think it's very important to have the right gear, ultimately photography comes down to light. It's in the word. Photography, writing with light. So some of the qualities of light that I look for, and that we're going to look for in our con photography, because our con photography is people. People, fursuits, animated subjects, as opposed to landscape, architecture, macro photography. We're not doing any of that. We're doing con photography. And so these are the qualities of light that we look for. The light should be large. It should be directional. It should be uniform. And it should be broad spectrum. I'm going to go over these ones. I want to talk about this one first. Broad spectrum light. Different light sources have different primary frequencies. Right? You can have yellow light, you can have blue light. People look great under reddish light because it takes away all the blemishes in your skin. People look awful under green light because it makes everything really stand out. this is why prostitutes have red lamps, because it makes you look better. No, really, really, really. It makes you look very smooth and amazing. Now, digital cameras don't actually care what the primary color of the light is, because the sensor, or the image that comes in, can be calibrated to whatever color temperature, is the term they use, whatever color temperature is dominant. So for example, this was shot in daylight, roughly daylight. Daylight is kind of blue. We don't experience that because our eyes are pretty amazing. Our whole visual cortex is incredible. Daylight is blue because the sky is blue, you have lots of scattered photons. It tends to have a very blue cast. But in this case, the camera analyzed this scene, decided this is probably daylight, so anything that's blue should probably be white. And then it produces this image. So usually you don't need to worry about white balance. We're not going to talk about it too much. But one thing that is important is that regardless of what the primary frequency of the light is, the primary color temperature of the light, there should also be other color temperatures inside it. You know the example where you hold a prism up to the sun and then you see a whole spectrum, right? You see the whole rainbow. That's because even though the primary frequencies are yellow from the sun itself and blue from the sky, all the other frequencies are represented within the light. And that means that everything just looks good. This is how light is supposed to be. This is natural light that we experience as very good. Whereas if you take an artificial source, like a halogen lamp or sodium streetlights, you know those yellow sodium streetlights, yeah? Those are terrible. Those are very monochromatic. Monochromatic means that it only has a very limited spectral range. So if you take a photo under one of those sodium streetlights, even though you can calibrate your white balance so that everything that looks orange looks white, it still looks like crap. Because there's no other frequencies in there. Because every object that has a particular color, now I'm not wearing anything very colorful, like the only reason my jeans are sort of blue is because there is blue light reaching them that it will reflect. If no blue light is present, then they won't look blue no matter how you set your white balance. So when I'm walking through sodium streetlights, this looks sort of dark and muddy because there is no blue light to reflect. So we're always going to be looking for sources of light that are large, soft, directional, uniform, and broad spectrum because they will make our subjects look great. Now, why is this such a big deal for me? Because I think that the key to good photography is to find the light first and the subject second, or to move your subject. It's so much more important to have good light. So let's take a look at a couple of tricky situations that you might find yourself in. Bright light. We probably will have to deal with this quite a bit because it's very snowy outside, it's very bright. When you're shooting in daylight, in the sun, you have a couple of problems. I mean, daylight is great, right? It's a very powerful light source, it's very, very directional, but when you look at the photos, people have all of these shadows under their eyes and under their noses, and especially if they wear glasses, they cast these weird shadows on their face, and it's just not very flattering. It's because it's direct light, and it's not a very large light source. Now, you say, that's ridiculous, the sun is gigantic, but the sun is very, very far away. So it's basically this pinprick of light that's projecting these hard shadows. So what you want instead is to find open shade. It's an area where you're exposed to ambient light, reflected light. So it can be under a tree, where there's still a lot of light being scattered around from the ground, from the walls, from everywhere around you. So for example, this was at the EF Hotel. There was a canopy overhead, so there was no sunlight hitting these guys directly. And then instead what you get is light from the sky, light from the wall, light from everywhere, coming in a very directional, very soft way. It turns the entire world into a light source. And then you get this lovely detail coming out of the fur. That's a little pixelated, you can't see that here. But you get these smooth highlights. Everything is given character. Yeah, don't worry, we'll wait. So, in this situation, I found a place that had good light, right? And I waited for interesting subjects to come by. These guys, I thought they were interesting. He's absolutely adorable. Look at him. The next one, you want to find a suitable background. Now, some people might give you a simple hard and fast rule that the background should contrast with your subject. If you have a light subject, get a dark background. If you have a dark subject, get a light background. It's not always so simple. In this case, I think it's perfectly fine that the background is light and slightly low contrast. But being conscious of your background is absolutely crucial. We'll have a few more examples of that coming up. In terms of camera settings, low ISO, right? Not very sensitive, because sunlight is unbelievably powerful. And a fast shutter speed, which you can get away with, so you can freeze the action, because again, you have so much light bouncing around, you've got to keep it away from your sensor or you will overexpose and the whole image will just turn white. So here's a couple of other examples. This guy, technically he's an open shade, but I shot him against the sky here. The sky was very, very bright, so my camera, which I'd set to automatic metering, decided that the whole scene, the whole shot, should be of average exposure, which meant that this was made dark and that was kept light. So on average, this is a well-exposed image, but like our subject is over here and you can barely see him. So shooting into the sky, shooting into the sun, will often wind you up with this kind of a silhouette, and that can be something you want to do. But in this case, I think it's a shame. I think it's a shame. This is a baboon, which is a rare kind of thing. He was a very animated performer, but yeah, there's nothing left of him in this photo. And then we have this sort of hippie-looking dude who seems to be having just a great old time, and this is okay. Got a nice neutral background. There's some interesting patterns there. Oh, you can see the Rusfurrence logo. So this is okay. This takes care of itself. Low light. Welcome to my world. This is where they separate the men from the boys. Different cameras have different low light capabilities, right? All cameras are getting better and better and better at producing high quality image in low light with high ISO, as we see there. But so when the light is very low, you have to use lower shutter speeds, so you have to hold your equipment quite firmly. And look what I'm doing here. This is a ridiculous pose, but this is a very stable pose. Your natural instinct when holding a camera is to make yourself big and broad, and that's wrong. That's absolutely wrong. You want to stabilize it as much as possible. So you bring your elbows in, which looks ridiculous, preferably brace them against your chest, and then like this looks ridiculous, right? It does not look cool, and photographers do like to look cool, but this is a very stable shooting position. You're supporting the lens, you're holding the camera, you're bracing it against your chest is a very stable part of your body, and then you're going to stabilize it again by pressing it firmly against your head. And then you can shoot at fairly low shutter speeds, and then all you're doing is you're moving with your chest and with your shoulders. We'll do some exercises later on. We'll do some exercises. But when the light is low, the quality of the light that you get is even more important. So when the light is low, you're usually indoors. You're usually dealing with artificial light sources. And these can be halogen, which are much more popular these days, which is not a very broad spectrum light source. Or they can be incandescent, light bulbs. Light bulbs are great. They give very yellowish light, very yellow-orange light, but because the light is generated through heat, it means that all the other frequencies are still in there. Very, very desirable. You are going to have to use a low shutter speed, so your subject is going to need to stand still. And again, the background you choose is really going to make your image, because it's not going to look as good as it would in daylight. Look at this photo. French guy, first shooting for the first time. The light is not super, so everything comes down to his pose and the background that I chose. Like in many of these situations, I will choose a background first and then go looking for a subject. That's how important I consider it to be. Okay, this looks awful, which is unfortunate because this Roman dude was pretty cool. Here we have mixed sources of light conflicting with each other. We had a very cold light source over here, a very warm light source over here, so I tried to balance this photo so that the warm light source would be neutral, and the result was that this side is blue. I don't like it at all. The direction of the light is also not very good, as you can see. It's pretty hard, you can see these reflections, and by hard I mean that the light source is small. So this is just kind of unfortunate. I really shouldn't have put him here. I should have found someplace else to go. You make mistakes. This one will be eliminated. That's part of the... Guys, there are chairs over here still, if you want to sit down. No? You want to just stand there?
Yeah.
Okay, can you stand at attention then? There we go. That's what I like to see. This one, on the other hand, now this is a tricky situation. This is in a bar. In a bar they have lots and lots of mixed light sources. Some of them are yellow, some of them are blue. You can see the entire background here is red. It wasn't nearly that red. It's only because he was standing under a somewhat colder, bluer light source, and the background was illuminated with much warmer light sources. But then the farther background over here, you can see again they have nearly white light sources. So a lot of different light sources are conflicting with each other, but I put this guy under one single source, which was nice and soft. It was sort of a lamp similar to that, which I selected because it's nice and big. It's nice and big, so it's going to cast a nice soft aura of light around him, and it did. Look at it. This is okay. This is not a fantastic image, but it's got connection. It's got some texture to its fur. There's no weird color shit happening, so that's why this one was okay. Am I moving too fast, by the way? Does anybody have any questions about the stuff that we've discussed so far?
Your showing pictures which you say are not that great, but still good. Which of those pictures which are actually considered to be great?
Might do. I focused mostly, so for the sake of discretion, I've been focusing on fursuit photography because they can be identified, right? I don't know how comfortable people are having their photos displayed, and I know that this is being recorded, so I focus pretty much exclusively on fursuits who are definitely okay with being recorded. I may have a couple of images coming up that I think are pretty good, but con photography, it moves fast, it's organic, it's exciting. You kind of have to, like, it happens in a split second and you have to catch it while it's happening. So they're not works of art, they're very much works of craft, right? You as a photographer, you have to be ready, you have to be prepared, and you have to be willing to grab your gear when you sense something interesting is going to happen. And otherwise, like, these portraits of fursuits, they're okay, they're fun. But I far prefer, let me see, do I have, like, these found little moments. Like, this is not directed. These guys were just having a conversation, which I think is adorable. You can see a connection between them. There's a lively body posture going on. It inspires the imagination. This one is a lot of fun. I had a similar image, which unfortunately I have on my iPad, which I can't put on the projector, where there was another little fursuiter right next to him, some wolf dude in a t-shirt, who was bouncing the balloon on his nose, and he was just having a great old time. And that one I was really pleased with, because it had the same nice large light source, it had the same good background, and then it had this very lively kind of subject. Any other questions before we move on? Yeah.
What is your advice for the lowest shutter speed that you can shot from the hand?
Lowest shutter speed. Okay, oh, that's a very good one. I can give you an absolute answer to that. The traditional wisdom on a 35mm camera, that is the sensor size of 35mm, is that the minimum shutter speed that you can handhold on, if you're a steady photographer, if you're a relatively steady photographer, is the inverse of the focal length. So, if I put this 85mm lens on here, then I could theoretically handhold it and be stable at 1/85th of a second. With this 35mm, it would be 1/35th of a second. But that's for 35mm cameras, right? Full frame cameras. And not everybody has that. Most consumer level DSLRs have what's called APS-C sized sensors. Those are 1.5 times as small. Micro Four Thirds is half the size. And so, if I put this on a camera that has a sensor that's 1.5 times smaller, then instead of an 85mm lens, it behaves like a 135mm lens, 85 times 1.5. Don't try to work this out, just take my word for it. If I put this 50mm lens on a Micro Four Thirds body, which is twice as small as the 35mm sensor in there, then it becomes 100mm. And so also does my minimum hand-holdable shutter speed. So if I have a Micro Four Thirds camera and a 50mm lens, 1/100th of a second is where I roughly want to be. Now, even that shouldn't be taken for granted, because even though I can handhold this at 35mm lens at 1/35th of a second, maybe my image is stable, but my subject is still moving, right? So it's not a guaranteed solution. On the other hand, many lenses nowadays offer image stabilization or optical stabilization, where there are moving elements inside the lens that compensate for vibration of your body. Some cameras have it built into the sensor itself. The Olympus pen series, I believe, has multi-axis stabilization of the sensor. So even if you're a little bit unsteady, it's going to compensate for that to a great degree, and you can get like twice, or you can slow your shutter speed twice or 4 times even, and still get a steady image. But again, subjects are still moving. Any other questions?
And when it comes to an animate object, what is it?
Inanimate object.
Animate.
Animate object. That depends entirely on the subject. That depends. Then it's just a question of shoot, look, shoot, look. The process of shooting and then looking, by the way, is called chimping. Chimping is when you look at your image and go, ooh, ah. Yeah, this is professional terminology, guys. Let's get used to it. Okay, we've seen these. Let's look at fursuits. Okay. Fursuits provide special challenges for a photographer because they are always moving. They will never stand still, because when fursuits stand still, they are creepy. Yeah? How many of you are fursuiters? Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Good. So you know these rules, right? When you're in suit, you never stand still. You have to keep moving, because as soon as you stand still, you are scary. So it makes it tricky to follow. It makes it tricky to photograph them, because they don't want to stop and pose. Well, they shouldn't stop and pose, really. It's our responsibility as photographers to go and find them and to record them. So it's tough to focus on them. It's tough to get a nice smooth image. So you have to use a fast shutter speed. This limits the environments in which you can shoot these exotic creatures, right? You want environments with a lot of light. You want environments with open shade, such as this one. Once again, in front of the Rusfurrence Hotel, where there's enough light that you can use a fast shutter speed so that they can keep moving and you can still get the shot. They also tend to find themselves in places where there are very busy backgrounds, in places where there are many people, where there are many buildings. In particular, where there are many other people and fursuiters, I find that very troublesome, because I like to isolate my subject. I want this guy to be the central focus of the image. And it's very difficult, because this guy wants to be where other people are. He wants to be playing with kids, he wants to be playing with adults, having fun with other fursuiters. So he's not going to be in an isolated area. So what can I do to isolate him? Okay, well, here's a factor that really, really plays in our advantage. Fursuiters have very large heads. They have disproportionately large heads. So you can do something that you can't do when you're shooting a human subject. But you can't do so easily. You can lower yourself and shoot up, right? Because their head is so large, the perspective will shrink their head, which, okay, if you shoot up into a human space, you get a nice view of his nostrils, and his head looks too small, or her head looks too small. And it looks like they have just massive boobs and bellies and giant thighs, and it's not flattering at all. But this doesn't apply to fursuiters. This is how they're supposed to look. This is very, they're exaggerated characters already. So if you get down and shoot up, you're going to wind up with a fairly natural image of them. And what's even better, your subject rises in view and the background falls. So this was a pretty busy area. There was lots of kids running around, there was lots of other fursuiters. And in this case, I was able to drop low enough to take this shot without anybody else being in view. Actually, I tell a lie. I can see here that this was on the street. So I lucked out with this one, but the basic principle is the same. And a number of these other photos were taken in that way. Let me go back to the one with the cow. Yeah, this one. This was in the lobby. The lobby was full of people, and I didn't want any other people in this shot, so I just got right on the ground. I think in this case I actually lay down on my back to get this shot. And the result is clean background, no other people to distract you. So when you guys are out there shooting fursuits, I want to see you on the ground. I want to see you on your knees, because the images, believe me, will be better. Also, I just want to see Russians on their knees. All right. Fursuits are also problematic because the eyes. The eyes are artificial, and when we look at a photo of a person, of a living thing, and fursuiters do come across as living things, we always make a connection with the eyes first. Like, this is why it's so important to put your autofocus on the eye, because if the eye is sharp, the rest of the image will feel sharp as well, even if it isn't. Even if the ears are out of focus and the nose is blurry, as long as the eyes are sharp, your mind will tell you that this is a sharp image. And if the eyes are blurry, then it doesn't matter if the hair is in focus, it doesn't matter if everything else is sharp, you're not going to experience the photo in the same way. So, look at these guys. Okay, this was an interesting sort of horsey fursuit during a fursuit walk in, again, in Rusfurrence. And I liked the interaction that was going on here between the little girl and this massive horse, but the photo doesn't register any emotion. I mean, the focus is on the hoof and the hand, and maybe if I took just that out, that would be a decent photo. But for the rest, you see this muzzle that's slightly out of focus, you don't see his eyes, she doesn't seem to be connecting with him at all, which I think is a shame. It's not an image that works very well. Whereas this one, there's kind of nothing to it. It's just a fursuit portrait. But look at that. The eyes are bright and sharp. The expression on the muzzle is cute, but that isn't even necessary. There's no body language to speak of. The background isn't super clean, but those eyes are great. And so this image has some impact, yes? I mean, does anyone disagree? Does anyone like that one better than this? No. And if you do, why? Seriously, no one? Well, that just means that I'm right. And I do like being right. This concludes our presentation so far. So the subjects we've talked about are finding good light, finding a good background, a couple of tips on dealing with fursuits. So I have a question for you guys. Let's say that fursuiter who was here earlier, right, was still here and volunteered to model. Where would we put him if we wanted to take a photograph? Under the big light or under the skylight? That's very good. I like the skylight. And which direction would we shoot in?
To the curtains.
Toward the curtains, right? Nice neutral location. We could also shoot from here and up into those lights. Those lights are also a nice and interesting background. Can anyone go and check if there's a fursuiter outside? I kind of want to shoot something. So, because I should be able to do this. Yeah, don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. Let me just.
Where we put it?
I am tethered here, so unfortunately we have a certain limit to what we can do. Come over here, darling. Now, give me just a second. Let me introduce you here. So this is Tiwal. No, sorry, incorrect. Yeah. It's Sky Avenger. Assuming that it's watch yourself. There you go. Sky Avenger. All right. Oh, so look at this. This is working. We can actually get this image over here. How about you come with me right over here, and you stand here. Oh shit. Okay, and that is fine. We're going to do a couple of things to see if we can produce a decent image with you standing right there. Now, we would have liked you under that light or under that light. We've just been talking about the quality of light, and we can't have you there because I'm stuck with this cable, so we have to do something else. Now let's see what we can do. I'm going to shoot these nice and quick. So let's see what happens if I just take a photo like this. Okay, and then we wait for it to transfer. This is actually pretty slow. Well, we can take another one while we're waiting. Okay, so are we impressed with this image so far? Not really. Let me see if I can change the white balance, whether that's going to make a difference. Because this is a very yellow environment. Thank you for your patience, by the way. So we'll do another one. And is that going to actually transfer? This is worse. So it's balanced for. I'm gonna put it back. I don't like this at all. Of course, I'm shooting in RAW format, which means that I can always change this. So if I want to adjust the white balance, I can do this. I can make this colder, yeah, and then a little bit redder, and then a little bit warmer. And that's closer to a natural tint. It's still not great. I think most of the problem is that we have a very noisy background here, right? See this image? We have Shadow Panther over here, who is not contributing to the image, thank you very much. And we have all this junk in the background. So this is because I'm shooting with a 35mm lens. I love this 35mm lens. It's tricky. 35mm is a fairly wide angle of view. Here, check this out. This is how much I can see of you. It's a fairly wide angle of view, but I like that challenge. I like that that forces me to get closer to my subjects. It gives me a lot of space around them. You see how much? Yeah. You're a handsome bunch. So let's see what happens if I go to a different lens. Now, if you happen to have a zoom lens, then you don't have to swap lenses like I'm doing now. No, this is great. Absolutely keep going. I'm going to go to a 50mm lens. Now, this is a normal standard lens. 50mm is a fantastic focal length. It's a perfect representation of the human angle of view. So not the field of view, because I can see all of this up to about here. This is massive. But the perspective that I see when I look on someone is the same when I look through this viewfinder. It's just as if there's a little window through which I'm looking. Whereas when I look through the 35mm, it looks wider than I would expect. So let's see what happens if I shoot him with a 50mm. And how about you try coming a little closer, my furry friend? Come a little closer to me, please. And continue. Play, please. Play. And play. Yeah. Okay, I want more joy, more innocence. More innocence, yes, exuberance. You will not get any food unless you play. Okay, thank you very much. Let's take a look at what we've got here. So see, these are a little better already. Because look at this background. It's getting nice and blurry. And why is that? Because I've got the same aperture on here that I had on a 35mm. 1.4, f1.4. Can't go any lower than that on these lenses. But it's pretty wide already. But the longer your focal length, the shallower your depth of field. Okay? And shallow depth of field means that less of the volume is in focus, which means that more of it is out of focus. See, I like this one. Let's go back. Yeah, stop. No, you don't, no, it doesn't want to stop. It will never stop. Not that one, not that one. Where was it? Which one was it that I just saw that I liked?
This one.
This one. Yeah, okay, well, in retrospect, I don't love it so much. Oh, no, it's okay, it's okay. It looked like it was out of focus, but it's okay. Let's see, I've got some standard things I can apply here to make it pop a bit more. I'm using Adobe Lightroom, so I have some standard filter and effects that I've created. Let's put this in black and white. Let's bring up the whites. Bring down the exposure. Okay, still not great, still not great. I think 50mm is still too wide because there's too much distance between us. So let's go to this baby. The Magic Cannonball. $2,000 worth of lens, and just seriously, look at the size of it. Look at how much light comes through there, right? Actually, I want to shoot this. Let's see if this is going to be possible. That's pretty cool. So I'm going to put this guy on. Now this guy is a notorious, didn't come out right. Is a notorious portrait lens. Because 85 millimeters is nice and long. And, huh? Yeah, it's okay. I wish you guys were sharp, but I should have used manual focus on this one. Because obviously the lens has trouble focusing through another lens. Okay. F1.2. Let's see what we can do. How about you come a little closer? I want to show this lens off. Come a little closer, a little closer, a little closer, a little closer. One more step, one more step. One more step. There you go. Okay, I'm going to focus on your nose now. So if you could hold still, I'm going to focus on your nose. And now again on your eye. So let's see those images. You see that? Focused on the nose, the eyes are already out of focus. The background is a complete mess. It's totally blurred out. This is what we want in this case. Now, again, gear doesn't matter. So it doesn't matter if you, like me, have sold 2/3 of your penis to be able to afford the magic cannonball. Oh, yeah. I only needed 1/3. Hello. Are we still on? Okay. If you have a standard zoom lens, right, that comes with your camera, you can get a very similar effect if you take a few steps back, rack the zoom out all the way. Like some zooms go to 105 millimeters. On an APS-C camera, that means it's much closer to about 160. So that even though you may be shooting at f5.6, f5.6 is it's about 16 times narrower than the maximum aperture this can do. You're still going to get an effect very similar to this, as long as you keep more distance, right, and zoom in further, if you happen to have a zoom. So I think we're getting closer to a decent image. Now, considering how long this focal length is, you can have a bit more distance. So you can take a couple of steps back and resume your play, please. Okay, I want you to be more jolly, more frivolous. More to your left, please. More to your left. No, the other left. Oh, yes, okay, and now look adorable. Hug the balloons. Hug the balloons, please. Yeah, and closer to you, just like that. Oh, precious. Yes, he is, yes, he is. Oh, I just want to hug you and squeeze you and chain you to a radiator in my basement and do stuff to you. Okay, better, right? This is getting better. I'm still not loving this background, these chairs. They don't bother me too much. I do think it's a little empty and lonely in that last image. This one I like. You've got more of a connection. This is good. Although you can see the divide of the fursuit head, which kind of spoils the illusion. Here we go. We're going back. This one has some nice lighting happening to the balloons. Oh, get back here. Yeah, it's still loading. It's still loading. We'll let it finish. It's not finished. Look at it. It's still going. Oh, I think this is the one. What do you think? What do you think? No, I'm not looking for compliments. What we're doing now is we're doing selection. So now that we know that we have a good image that I'm happy with, thank you very much, by the way, Sky Avenger. Thank you very much for being our model. I release you from your torment, and you may proceed and play with others. Oh, yes. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, Sky Avenger. Huh? This? Let's go through all of them. Okay, so After I've done a shooting session, I go through in several passes. I go through them all several times. The first time I look at which ones are out of focus or where people look stupid. And this is pure instinct. Bam, 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 bam. Because when I come back from a wedding, I have 5,000 photos and I have to get them edited as quickly as possible in order to still be able to sleep that day. I want to get them done. So I go through and I throw away all the ones that I don't need. But I work through a process of inclusion rather than exclusion. That means that I mark the ones that I want to keep as keepers and ignore the ones that I don't care about. So let's do that here. Let me bring up my little control panel here at the bottom. Now, a lot of photo management applications, this is Adobe Lightroom, which is, well, it's expensive, but it's really come down in price. And it's pretty much the standard. Can you fuck right off? Yeah, you're bouncing and making this bounce as well. Don't look at the door. You know that you did it wrong. Seriously, motherfucker. Bounce all you like. You can't heckle me. So, there are other image management applications such as Picasa from Google, which is free, ACDC even, which is, I think, Russian, isn't it? From way back in the day. Used to be a big fan in its very early days. On the Apple side, you have Aperture, which is also an expensive application, and it's in some ways better, in some ways worse than Lightroom. They're very much neck and neck. But Aperture hasn't seen a lot of development in the last couple of years, so that's why I switched to Lightroom. Basically, all we really care about is that it has basic image editing tools, such as exposure and contrast, and that it has a way to rate and filter your image. In this case, I'm going to use star ratings. They also offer color labels, so you can say, keepers are going to be green and throwaways are going to be red. Whatever system works for you. I use star ratings. My rating system is roughly this. 0 stars means I throw it away. Eventually, if my hard drive gets full, or I need space, or I just want to clean up my archive, anything that has 0 stars and isn't new, I delete it. And some photographers are against this. Some photographers say that you should never delete any photos, and there is something to be said for that. Storage space is cheap, but it's not free. And more importantly, while I like to keep space free on my hard drive, I also like to keep space free in my mind, right? I find that mediocre or substandard images get in the way of the decent images, and they just take up more space in the catalog and in my mind, so I don't want them around. So 0 stars goes away. 1 star I keep because it may have some redeeming value, because it may be, for example, at a wedding, that it's a shot of a particular event or a particular person that I have no other shots of. So if that is an important subject that I need to have, and I don't have any other shots, then I might use that 1 star image. 2 star images are the ones that I'm comfortable sharing with the intended audience. 3 star images are the ones that I'm comfortable sharing with everyone. So those are the ones that go on my gallery, on Flickr, right? And that's very few. 4 star photographs are the ones that I consider appropriate for my portfolio. Very, very few. And 5 star images are what I consider to be the best photos I've ever taken. I have never taken a 5 star photo. Yep. This is how serious I am about the distinction. I don't believe that I have currently ever taken a 5 star photo. It will eventually happen though. We're always getting better. So let's take a look at this. Should we keep this photo or not?
No.
No, why not?
Later on.
It's a messy photo, it's boring, right? But if I look at all the images I have, I don't have a lot of images of the technical team. So you know what? I want to keep this one just in case I want to have a photo of the tech team at work. And besides, we all spend so much time watching them get this shit set up, right? It's part of our memory of this panel. So let's keep that one. 1 star. This one.
Let's get started.
It's got character, it's got character, it's worth keeping, right? Okay, it's in focus, it's worth keeping. This one's in focus as well, so we keep it as well. Now you'll notice that I don't go back to decide which one is better, even though obviously this one is better. It's got better color, it's got better composition, and this one has more mess. But I don't focus on that. I'm going to go through them all and decide, are these at least 1 star? Yes? Okay. No, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. Huh? At this point, no. I do that later. At this point, I only decide, is this at all worth keeping for any reason? And then it gets 1 star. So let me see. Worth keeping? No.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah?
I think it's got a direction.
Don't worry about that. You're looking for too high of a standard. Is it worth keeping simply because it is in focus or even slightly interesting? That's what we're focusing on. Our standards are very low at this pass. This one, some space. Don't look at it too long. Yes, it's in focus. It's in focus. I'm happy. Now let's say that I was shooting JPEG. I don't like the color. No, I don't like the color. No. Yeah, you guys. God, you're a handsome bunch of devils. This one, no, I don't like it. There's no connection. It's in focus, but there's absolutely nothing happening there. Huh? Yeah, well, even then, but he's out of focus. He's out of focus, and this guy we have no connection with, so there's nothing happening in this image. There's no reason to keep it. So we're going to skip that one. He's obscured. Nah. I'll keep it. I'll keep it. I like the balloons. No. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Well, we worked on that one before.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Argue. Argue. Tell him why you said yes.
Nice composition.
Nice composition. What do you like about it?
You can see the face through the balloons.
You can see the face through the balloons. Yeah. Okay. Now, who said no and why?
I said because there is no face.
Because there's no face. Well, you don't always have to have a face in order to have a connection, because you've got the pores there. The pores are very expressive, and you've got these balloons, so you've got some stuff happening. So at this point, I'm always going to err on the side if I'm in doubt, I'm going to keep it, and I'll worry about it later. I'm just trying to make the next pass a little easier on myself. So this one gets 1. Yeah. Come on, faster, guys. Yes or no? No? Yep. Yep. I want to hear everyone here, please. Seriously.
Number yourself.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. This one. No. No.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I heard.
Yes.
Yep.
Nice to
No.
What's the fucking difference? Yes and no. Say it louder.
Yeah.
No.
Because it's
The
not
same.
a focus. This is the same eyes. But
No, it's not.
the same.
The nose is in focus. These are exactly the same.
Look at the eyes.
The only slight difference is that this is slightly pink instead of green. That's the only difference. I swear to God, I have a high resolution screen here. What?
Why is it happening? Why is it pink?
Because he moved slightly, and the camera therefore interpreted the white balance slightly differently. There is no difference between these two images, guys. So if one of them stays, the other one stays as well. Because at this point, we're not selecting, we're not excluding, we're only taking out the absolute crap.
Yes.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
It's not the crap.
Standards too high, brother. Standards too high. At this point, we're going through. It's in focus. It's okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you notice what's happening now? Do you notice how you're evaluating these? You're getting bored of the same old photos. And I don't mean that in a funny kind of way, but as you go through, you're just getting tired of seeing the same old shit. This is a natural response. This is a natural response. And at this point, you have to keep reminding yourself, I'm going here through the first time and only taking away the ones that absolutely suck. Because what we're doing now is we're going to make our job easier when we're actually doing the selection. And I'll show you how to do that in just a second. So we'll keep that one. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, I'm a decent photographer, so most of these are in focus. Okay. We have a bunch of photos that have 1 star. In fact, most of them have 1 star. I'm going to set my filter to show only photos that have 1 star or higher. And now, I'm going to go through them in reverse. Now, why am I going to do that? It's because when you take multiple photos of the same subject, your last photo is usually the best. So, now I'm going to go through the process of selecting. I want to find the ones that I think are worth showing, not just worth keeping, not just worth reviewing again, but really worth showing. And those are likely going to be at the end. So I want my first impression, when there's a series of photos that are roughly the same, right? And I go through them in chronological order and I think, okay, this is a pretty interesting subject. And then I see the next one, that's slightly better. Is it slightly better? Let me go back and forward and back and forward. Okay, we'll do that one. And then the next one, same subject, even better. And then I go back and it gives me so much doubt. So when I'm actually doing the selection, I start at the end. Because this one, very, very good image. Very happy with it. I'm going to give this 2 stars. This one, similar, but I think it's worse. Because there's not that same kind of connection with the eyes. This is really cute and he's an adorable little bear. And this one, the balance feels off. The splash of colour over here feels a little too heavy. He's cut off over there. So this is why I approach it in reverse, because the best images are at the back, and then it's easier to reject and ignore the images that came before it. So this one I'm going to ignore. This can keep its 1 star. 2 star or 1 star? 2 star. Ah. Is this creepy? Okay.
No, why? Because you only see the white one eye.
Yeah, that's true. You only see the white of one eye. Now this one I like. Slightly tilted angle. There's some. It's a little bit dynamic. You've still got these flashlights and these lamps hanging over there. I'll give this one 2 stars as well. 2 stars. All right, fine. We're only doing the second pass now, so we don't have to be too selective. 2 stars? Yeah, I agree. This one? No. No. Ah. I like this. That's the thing that I like about this image. This translucency there, I can work with that. Like the rest of it is dark, but I can fix that. There's no connection with the eye, but I can fix that as well. I could give it a gradient. I could crop it from here. I want to focus on that. So I'm going to give that 2 stars just to see if I can spend some time tweaking that, because I like that subject. No. Okay, so we like this one. And how about this? Better, right? So it doesn't always follow that the last one is better, but this one is a little plain compared to this one. And it's tough to tell why, but that's how it is. Yeah. Well, the focus in this case was on the nose, but it's not as good as the previous one. So I've already got that covered. I've already got the best image in that series, so I'm going to ignore those. No, I won't keep that. La la la. I can do what I want because I'm up here and you're down there. What do we think about this? Yeah, I think it's got personality. I think especially the fact that the rest of the space is so empty and he's just standing there with his balloons, like he's a little, like, it looks like he's doing something that he shouldn't be doing. It looks like he got caught, right?
Puppy.
I like, no, not fapping. You can't fap with balloons. No. You shouldn't, it's bad for you. Okay, this guy gets 2 stars. How are we doing for time, by the way? I don't know what my schedule is. When is this supposed to be over? Who cares?
Okay, so I like this one because he's kind of impish, like he's doing a little crime.
Actually, this is good because of the posture, definitely. It's got this cart and it's got some bit of action going on.
It's got a bit of action going on, and the light is nice. Look at this little pool of light that he's standing in. Hello, we're going through your photos. So I like that he's got this little pool of light that his card is dangling over here. So we're going to keep this one. Although I'll probably take Shadow Panther's arm out. Yeah?
That's fine.
This one? No, it's a lovely pose, but what's he reaching for? Right? It's an incomplete action. I don't like that.
To you.
He's not bowing to me. You can, huh? You could crop it, but that doesn't bring the information into frame. What I want to see, what I want to know when I see this image is what is he reaching for? And my curiosity isn't satisfied. So that makes this, to me, an unsatisfying image, and I am in charge. So. I kind of want to, I like it, but the balloons are out of focus. There's no eyes. I want to hold out for a better one. So I could give it 2 stars for now, but I happen to know that we have a better one that's similar to this. Because I started at the end. No connection, nothing happening there. We talked about this one before. Let me just reset that so that it looks like the others do. Yeah, I like this one. 2 stars. Really? I don't like this join here. I think that spoils the illusion. So even though I like the rest about it, I'm not going to use that one.
Actually, it's unique because it's balancing the balloons themselves, and you don't see that in any other photo.
Very good. So what Dan just said is this one's unique in that it looks like he's actually balancing the balloons on his nose, which I think is adorable. So despite the fact that I still don't like seeing the join, and refers to raise the head like that, I can deal with that. We can crop it out from here because this subject is so cool and interesting. 2 stars. Okay. Well, we're getting closer to the start of this session. I'm going to keep this, but I'm not going to process it any further. This is not going to go online, or it's not going to go in the gallery, so it doesn't get 2 stars. Same here. Oh, I like that one. Well, the suspicion over there, they're both sort of in focus, it's close enough. And you have this nice sense of space. You have these lights moving into the background, you have this pattern on the... one thing that you always struggle with when you're using autofocus, or guided autofocus, where you select the focus point on your DSLR or your mirrorless camera, is getting the feet in frame. Because especially on large format or medium full frame sensors, the focus points that you can select are roughly in the center of the image, right? So if I want to put the focus point on his eye, I put it on the upper left focus point that's available to me, put it up there, right? That's exactly what happened in this case. But then his feet fall off. So there's a couple of things you can do. I could focus on his eye and then move the camera slightly down and take it. You don't always think about that at the moment. But I still like it. I still like this image. It gets 2 stars.
No. Again.
No?
Yes.
But this one? Yeah. And this one, no, we'll just keep that, but it's only for the sake of memory. Okay, same exercise, but now with the items that are 2 stars, and now we're going to move forward again. Which ones are we going to share?
Yes.
These are going on the internet, right? Literally, that's what I'm going to be doing. So this, definitely, right? It's unique in the entire set. It has character. It tells us everything we need to know about Faisal. Huh? Okay, this one. Why not? That's a very good question. Why not?
You have better ones.
But not with Shadow Panther. And I think that he makes the image in this case. Like, he also tells the story. Like, this is what we were doing. We were shooting with a fursuiter over here, right next to Shadow Panther, who clearly has well-formed opinions about the situation. I'm going to give this one 3 stars. This one, let's see if we can rescue it first. Because I don't like anything except what's happening on the nose here. So I'll bring up my crop tool, and lots of image editors have this. They'll look slightly different, but they'll work to the same result. So I'm going to crop it just like so. Alright, and I'm going to try and include some of those lights. Let's see what that looks like. And turn it slightly. What happened there? That was not what I intended to do. Oh, it's blocked. And I'll bring it in over here. Man, I feel like Bob Ross. You don't know Bob Ross? Okay, I forget that I'm in Russian. Bob Ross is this painter who, never mind, forget about it. So I thought that this would be interesting, but now that I look at it, now that I've taken away everything that I don't think works, I don't think the image works. I don't like it enough. So I'm going to leave it like this. Poor little decapitated bear. But no, these are the hard choices you have to make as a photographer. Like, I really love how this came out. I really love that it's balancing on his nose, but it is not a good image. It's not. I'm therefore not going to share it with anyone, so it doesn't get 3 stars. This one I like. It's got some interesting stuff going on, but do we have better ones? Do we remember?
Right, question. You like this one, and it's got the same hand division problem that as Rusfurrence. Why this one?
No.
And that's, look at it, you clearly see the head is separate from the body.
Yeah, but it's not separated, it's not pulling away. And we have eyes to focus on, so what's the big deal? Eye, well, still, you still parse them. Yeah, okay. Admittedly, they fall away a bit, but you're still clearly being addressed. And it does kind of look like he's throwing the balloons to you, doesn't it? Let's keep it for now. Because at this stage, I'm going to select some photos, and then afterwards I'm going to go through them again, and then I'm going to take out the ones that I think are redundant. So I'm going to keep this one for now. This one, I think it's cute, but it's not as good as this. Right? Cute. Again, cute, but not to the same standard as some of the other photos in here. This is interesting, but it's irrelevant to what we were doing. Right, so I'll keep it and maybe I'll post it somewhere, but not in this set. Yeah? Okay. I think it doesn't have a whole lot of personality. Let's see, but let's do it. Otherwise we wind up with a very small gallery. This one, the balloons are nice. Let me see what I can do. Take the exposure down a little bit. So let's see what happens if I try to emphasize it a bit, like so. Take that down. Let's do some vignette shit. I always start extreme and then I mellow it down. It makes it easier to see what's happening. I don't think there's enough focus going on here. I think that as much as this subject is interesting, either I'd have to crop. Oh, we can do that. That'll work. So say from about here to there. And get rid of that text. Okay, I want to get rid of this light over here because I think it's distracting. And then for the rest, it's a matter of correcting the white balance and giving it some more punch, some more color, a little bit more contrast. Let's bring down the shadows thing. That's going to go well. We're getting close to an image that I'm happy with. We're blowing out the background a little bit, but everything's sort of guiding the eye upwards. It's not great, but this is something that I'd spend some time on. and give it 3 stars. Do we agree? Like, this is okay, right? This is coming closer. It's not as good as the other ones, but I can work on it a little more if I'm into that. No? Okay. No. I kind of like it. I kind of like it. I kind of like that there's this enclosed, there's this enclosed sort of private space. You've got him sharp and you've got the balloon sharp. Everything's slightly tilted. You've got a shadow on him. I just like the depth and the volume in this image.
I see the lights.
The lights are a distraction? I don't think so. I don't think so. In this case, maybe this one is slightly too close to the edge, and I don't like to keep sources of stress near the edge. What do we think, guys? You can disagree. You have no special feelings about this picture. Well, we are not the same people. Yes?
They say that it's better to cut limbs.
Yes, correct. It is, and I should have done better, but I didn't. So that's no. I'm not making fun of you, but that's the situation that we're dealing with. It is a little too bad that the rest of the legs aren't on there, but I don't feel that it's such an inviolate rule, right? Inviolate that it should never be violated. In this case, given the lens that I had and my subject's size and distance, there was no way to get him fully in view and also get the balloons. Okay, you guys have no special feelings about this? That's okay. Let's leave it at 2 stars and move on. What do we think? 3 stars? No. No, there's nothing special here going on, nothing special about the light. He's cute, but he's not making any connection with either the balloons or with us. What about this one? Yeah. But here I do want to get rid of this big blotch of light there up on the top. This can stay. And we have another source of stress down the side here. This incomplete shape. I don't like having incomplete shapes near the edge because they evoke curiosity and they distract from your subject. I'm going to get rid of these sources of stress, like so. I'm losing that lamp that I like, but that's okay, that's a worthy sacrifice. Still not. I still want a sliver of orange down the side here, because otherwise it's just a very plain background. You have just a little bit of color going on. This is okay. This is an okay 3-star image. I may yet decide to take this out, depending on how large the set is getting. Oh my god, this one's slightly better. Shit, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's go. Okay, so we go back straight away. This one gets 2 stars. This one, I want to keep it just exactly as it is. I don't need to crop it. And no, that one's not as good. This one's better. Yeah?
Yep.
And that brings us to the end of this set. Now, how many photos have we wound up with that are okay? 6. Jesus Christ. Is that Russian numerals? So 6. We had a whole photo shoot. We shot a bunch of photos. We shot about, what was it, about 50 photos, but we kept 6. And in fact, now that I look at them again, I might go through them and let me see which ones I want to keep. I'm probably not going to post this one because the rest is all about the bear, right? And as much as I like this, I'll post it somewhere separately, or I don't know, some porn site. But this gallery is about the bear. Would I keep that one? Would I keep that one? Let's see. We have this one, which is a portrait just of Sky Avenger, and as much as it's like it's okay, it's a lovely image, but it's not doing anything. And all the other items in the gallery are very dynamic, right? So I'm probably going to take that one out, and that's going to leave me with 4 images that are relatively diverse. We have one where he's just posing, one where he's throwing the balloons, one where he's chasing it over, but where the balloons are the focus, and sort of a conclusion where he's cuddling his balloons. This, I think, is a decent gallery. So we spent an entire panel shooting, and all we have to show for it is 4 photos. But those 4 photos are good, and that's what we want. We want good photos that don't call too much attention to themselves. And we've resisted the temptation just to take our memory card and fling it out on the net and call it a day and let people decide for themselves. So this is what I want you guys to do. And it sucks, it's very painful, because there are photos we remember liking. We liked them, there was something about them that we liked, but we can't share them because they were not good enough, and their presence would detract from the impact that these photos are going to make. And these are some pretty decent photos. Yeah? This concludes our panel. We've talked about finding good sources of light. Unfortunately, the sun has now gone down, so we can't go out and practice that. And we've had a lot of fun exploring the art of selection. So, originally, as you know, this was going to be the English for non-native speakers event. And I'd swapped that around because I wanted to do the photography event first, so that you guys would be prepared for this upcoming convention. So I'm really hoping that you guys go out and shoot, you think about your backgrounds, you think about your light. When there's a fursuiter, you get down on one knee and propose. Whatever you feel like doing, right? But that you produce really good images, and then that you use an image editing program or management program, or even just go through the files yourselves and find the best photos, and only post the best photos. Resist it. Exceptions can be made for fursuit shoots, because fursuiters are sluts, right? They constantly want photos of themselves. Make a separate gallery where all the fursuiters can go look through all of your photos, and there could be thousands in there. That's fine. But the actual gallery that you share with everyone about the con should be small. Maybe 10 photos. 10 fucking excellent photos is better than 50 mediocre ones. 50 excellent photos is even better. But so, I'm hoping that with the information I've given you today, you're armed to make the Rusfurrence con photo galleries the finest con photo galleries that we've ever seen. No. No, okay. Questions.
What about using flashes?
You'll notice that I haven't touched that subject at all. I tend not to use flash at all when it comes to on-camera direct flash. You know, this is why it's a pity that I had to use this thing instead of the iPad, because the version of the presentation on the iPad actually had a bit about flash. Let me introduce you to one of my favorite tools, which is this. This is a standard flash unit that should go on here. And instead, on the camera, I have this radio trigger that triggers the flash unit. A plastic beauty dish with a diffusion sock on it. Oh, this looks weird. Look at that. And then just a handy hand grip, because I do not like the look of straight-on flash that comes off your camera. It pops up and it flashes in your face, and it's terrible. It's terrible. For one thing, the light from the flash is a different color than the light that's coming from the environment. The environment is probably yellow from the halogen or the tungsten light, because you're shooting indoors. Why else would you need flash, right? It's coming straight on and straight back, so it's got no depth to it. It's a very small light source, and it is directional, sort of, but the direction is neutral. It's not coming from the side. It's not exposing any depth. It's not exposing any personality or character. It just generally sucks. So instead, with this thing, actually, since we're still online, I can probably demonstrate. I need a big volunteer. I don't care. Turn around, come here. Stand. No. You just stand right there. You just stand right there and do nothing and achieve nothing. There we go. Now let me turn off my filters here. And wait for that image to come in. I know. Let's do that again. I'm going to put this light here, and then here, and then here. Notice how close I'm putting the light to his face. That's because the size of a light source is dependent on its distance to the subject, right? How large it appears to you, that's how large it is. If I hold it all the way over here, then the light beams are going, the actual photons are going to be fairly parallel when they reach it, so not very large or soft. When I hold it close,
Without flash, please.
without flash, no problem. Let's see what that looks like. See what a difference it makes? Right? Large, soft, directional light. Now, you don't have to have this in order to do that. You can do it like my buddy over there is doing, where you mount it on here and then you bounce it off the ceiling. You turn the whole ceiling into a soft, large light source. Now, generally when I do this, I've seen you aim it forward. I tend to aim it back because I want to avoid any of that direct flash from hitting the subject. I don't want them to receive any direct light at all because that flattens them. So I aim it back, to the side, wherever there happens to be a nice white ceiling. If it's not white, yeah, then it's going to be weird. But you don't even need that. If you have, does anybody have a DSLR with a pop-up flash here right now? Do you have it? Does anybody have it with them? Okay, well anyway, so let's say that this thing, which it doesn't, had one of those pop-up flash things, right? It comes up, and then you have your flash right there. That would mean that normally when you take a photo of someone, it goes straight on, which is not very flattering. So you can do, it's kind of ridiculous, but do you have one? Excellent. Back button focus, how do we, let's see. Okay, not super flattering, of course. Let me see if I can wire this up. Yeah, I should be able to do that. You don't mind me dissecting your camera, do you?
No. Just be gentle, please.
I will. Okay. Are we back online? 70, very nice. So, I need someone to stand a little. Oh no, hold on. I forgot about zooms. Still, stand a little closer, please. Okay, so flash right in the face. They're coming up. Stay right there. Stay right there. Yeah, not very good, right? So what have I got here? My phone. The surface is made of glass. And to use it to try and reflect the light that wants to go straight forward, reflect it up into the ceiling. It's not going to work great, but let's give it a shot. And again. And the beauty about this is that the camera will try to detect how much light from the flash is actually reaching the scene, and when it realizes that it's much less than it expected, because the light has to go up and then back down again. Let's try it without the flash, see what the difference is. And then we should be done. So this is without. This is with bounced flash, right? So it's a little softer. It doesn't have much of an effect, but you can see that it has some. And this is direct. And none of these are particularly flattering. So does this answer your question about using flash? And thank you for bringing up that topic, because I had completely forgotten it. Does anybody else have any other questions that are burning in your mind? Oh, isn't he lovely? No, only men get to ask questions. Of course not, of course not. I'm terrified by Russian women, please. Good question. The question is, when I'm cropping a photo, do I have to stick to a standard format? The answer is that it depends on what you want to do with the photos. If you want to print them out, then there are certain, if you want to send them to a printing service, there are certain paper sizes that they use. So 2x3, which is 4x6, 4x3, these are standard paper sizes that they use. So if you're going to want to print these out, then yeah, you can probably do well by sticking to the standard sizes. I like to keep things consistent, partly as a challenge to myself, to train myself to look in this 3x2 format, right? And if I can't make an image work like that, then I kind of have to give up on it, because I've got to maintain my discipline, because a lot of the photography that I do for money is going to be printed and has to be in one of these formats. So even when I'm doing it just for myself, I tend to hold on to either 3x2 or 2x3, so that it would be narrower. But if it's just going online, you can do whatever the fuck you want. No, seriously, whatever makes the image look good. The square format is extremely popular these days due to Instagram. Yeah, don't you guys now regret that you didn't get a chair when I told you you could have one? I mean, you could stand there for ages. Are there any further questions that I can address?
Suppose you seduce someone, would you advise that person to get the most expensive camera available and develop the skills on the way, or go to first, develop the skills, and then get expensive?
That's an interesting question. So if you are yourself a budding young photographer, do you invest a lot of money into your gear and then develop your skills along the way, or do you start with cheap gear and invest as you improve? It kind of depends on your budget. Gear does matter. It's quicker, it's more fun to use, it's less hassle, because better cameras can handle low light situations better. So there's less frustration. It's easier to get a good image. The result of that is also that you don't work so hard to get a good image. But I feel maintaining your own emotional center in any kind of activity is very, very important. And anything you can do to make you enjoy your activities more is worth considering. So in this case, like, I've invested significantly in my equipment once I decided that this was something that I could make money on, right? Before that, I'd worked on much, much cheaper equipment. And there was a huge difference in the quality that I could produce. Partly is because these were much higher quality components, it had a larger sensor, the whole feeling of the image is different, but partly it's also because they were easier and quicker to use, and I could rely on them more, and I just wound up enjoying my photography more because I had expensive toys. And it's kind of a shallow thing to say, but it is definitely true. However, in this case, I would suggest if you had a particular budget and you wanted to buy some equipment, focus on the lenses that you want to buy. Focus on the lenses more than the camera. Go economical on the camera, because these cameras, you can get a cheap second-hand micro four thirds camera like the Panasonic GF1 for, what is it, maybe 200, 300 euros. That would be what? How many rubles? Help me out here. Yeah, around 8,000 rubles for a Panasonic GF1. And that can go to ISO, say about ISO 800, which is not very high. See, this one was shot at, this one was shot as ISO 400, but that's because I had flash. Let's see what happened when I didn't have flash. 1600. But then, if this was shot on the GF1 or another micro four thirds camera from say 3 or 4 years ago, it would already be very grainy. And the colors would sort of fade. But you can couple that with an amazing lens like the Panasonic 20mm f1.7, which, now again, I like fixed focal length lenses better than I like zooms, but that one is amazing. That lens almost convinced me to transition to the micro four thirds system instead of to the Canon system. And then the 85 1.2 convinced me to go Canon anyway. So I would say, check out the lenses that you want to use, what kind of photography you want to do. So, for example, if you have an APS-C crop format DSLR, which most people have when they have a consumer level DSLR, Canon, Nikon, Pentax, Sony, they all make 50mm lenses that are very, very good for almost no money. You know, 150 euros maybe for a really good lens that goes down to f1.8. Now, of course, with the crop format, that means that the 50mm is actually closer to 75mm, yes?
85.
Sorry?
85.
On Canon.
Yeah.
On Canon, the crop format is 1.6. So that makes it 85, 75, 85 is more of a portrait lens. We saw that here. I was standing over here and I was shooting Shadow Panther in the face and all I got was his head, like this, right, at this distance. At 50mm, I would have gotten him down to his folded, disciplined arms, and at 35mm, I would have gotten him down to his knees. Let's all think about what I just said there. So, there's a bit of a problem when you want a more wide-angle lens like this 35. 35mm on a crop format body would be closer to 50mm, yeah? And 50mm is normal. That's literally what it's called. This is called a normal lens. Photojournalists and photographers for the last century have walked around with one of these. So this is a focal length that is pretty good for just about everything. Everything that involves people, that involves places. It's never going to disappoint you. Well, except wildlife. Wildlife takes place at a much greater distance. Everything put together. Focus on the lens that you want. Focus on the kind of focal length that you want to explore. Research it very thoroughly, and then really economize on the camera, because you can in a year or two, new versions of the camera will come out, and what is cutting edge now will be really cheap on the second-hand market. But lenses retain their value very well, and a good lens will be with you for the rest of your photographic career. Any further questions?
What is the difference between mirror and non-mirror cameras?
What is the difference between DSLRs, which is digital single lens reflex cameras, which have a mirror, let me show you, and mirrorless cameras? This has a mirror inside it. Yeah? Okay, and what that's for is to deflect the light that comes in from the lens up into an array of sensors up here. There are phase detection autofocus sensors. There is a sensor that detects how bright the scene is, so it determines what kind of settings it needs to use. And there is this little window, the viewfinder. So I'm looking directly through my lens. Right? There's a clear optical path through the lens, up the mirror, through a prism, and then into my eye. And a mirrorless camera doesn't have that. It doesn't have that mechanism. In a mirrorless camera, the light coming in from the lens always exposes the sensor. So that's why you can only use the screen on the back, right? Or some of them have a viewfinder that has a screen inside it, so then you can still see what the sensor sees, but it's not the same as actually looking through it. So you're kind of dependent on the quality of the LCD screen. There's also another downside, which is becoming less of a problem lately, that phase detection autofocus sensors are much better than doing focus detection via the sensor. I'm not going to get into the details too much, but DSLRs have dedicated autofocus sensors which are better and faster than mirrorless cameras. However, over the last 6 months, several mirrorless cameras have been released that have these phase detect sensors built into the actual chip, built into the sensor. So they're getting better. The other difference is DSLRs are bigger. This is the biggest difference. DSLRs are bigger than most mirrorless cameras. So mirrorless cameras tend to be smaller, they tend to be lighter, easier to take with you. They don't tend to be cheaper though, unfortunately.
I think that the main problem of the mirrorless cameras is that they don't really have telelenses. You don't have any good 200 millimeters, 400 millimeters mirrorless.
That's true. That's true for the most part. Sigma makes 120 millimeter for the Micro Four Thirds system, if I'm not mistaken, and that translates to 240 millimeters. I think. But yeah. I think the lens lineup for Micro Four Thirds, while it has some very high quality optics, made it. Thank you. But yeah, it does seem to be slightly deficient in telelenses. Do we have any other questions? Because I can do this all day, and apparently so can you. Ah, that's an interesting question. Let's look at all the photos with a 0 rating. So, rating is equal to nothing. This one? Because the rest of the photo is boring. He's not the subject here. Okay, that is a valid question. Would I want to keep this in order to show it to this person, to show it to the person in the fursuit? In this case, even though it is you're right, it is the only photo of this line. And I should technically give this 1 star just based on that, just so I don't throw it away. But I hate this photo so much. I don't hate it, but it does nothing for me. It's ugly. It's just a snapshot. It's not impressive at all. It is not representative of what I, as an artist, am capable of. So I don't want to show this to anyone, not even him. Unless, like, there's a horrible fire somehow and lots of orphans die, and then the only memory that they have of their dad is that fursuit, and then, yeah, okay. Okay, I guess then you can have the goddamn photo, but do we really see that happening? No.
Where's the orphanarium?
Where's the what?
Orphanarium.
The orphanarium?
Fire tube.
The orphanarium, is that what we're calling it? That's awesome. Orphanage is the term. I'm going to write down orphanarium. I like the idea that it's a place where you can buy tickets and you can see orphans perform tricks. Okay. We can have one more question.
When will your next event take place?
Good. 9 o'clock tonight. 9 o'clock tonight, we're doing the Furry Story Hour. I have a couple of stories lined up. According to the schedule, it's supposed to be like 3 or 4 hours. It doesn't have an official end. So I have a couple of stories. We can see how it goes. We can do a story. We can maybe do some dancing, do some eating, go back to the story. We'll work it out. It'll be fun. They will be dirty stories, though. Maybe. Probably. Yes, it's an 18+ event. And they will be in English, and 2 of them will be mine, which means that their words are very, very long, but I'll try to make it entertaining all the same. And then on Friday, probably, I'm going to do an event on speaking English, which is something that we could all do with. But that one's currently scheduled, it was pointed out to me, opposite the Fursuit Games. And you know what, honestly, I would like to see the Fursuit Games. So we may change that schedule a bit, so stay awake. Did we all learn something? Yes. Did we all have a good time?
Yes.
Awesome, then I've earned my keep. Thank you very much for coming. I'm Alex Barris.